Part of the purpose of Crafting Ruby Dreams is to talk about writing. So let's talk about how I did with my writing in 2020. Hi, this is Katie from Crafting Ruby Dreams, and welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for joining me. I talk about planners, goal setting, writing, publishing, and getting right with my finances. Today, I'm going to do a recap of my writing in 2020. And you'd think it would be short considering how little writing I did do in 2020, but I want to talk about the mindset that I was in over the course of the year, as well as burnout, because it played such an important role in my writing life this year. In previous videos, I've glossed over how the year started out for me. My grand plan to start 2020 was that I was going to be back in writing the historical fiction novel that I had started in fall of 2019. And I was going to get started over the Christmas break while I was at home with family in Chicago. I had all of these grand plans of how I was going to carry through and have the novel finished by my birthday, which is in July. I was ultimately derailed by the fact that I was president of a local chapter of a writing organization, and the national writing organization basically imploded over Christmas of 2019, and you can probably figure out what that national organization was. To put it bluntly, it was extremely stressful and it completely derailed me. I had already been in burnout for various reasons since probably 2017. Dealing with this and seeing what had been hidden under the rock essentially was so demoralizing after the work that I had put into the local chapter. Being somebody who is very high empathy with regards to CliftonStrengths, so that means I can sense a lot of other people's emotions, and I'm very receptive to the emotions of other people, and having to be a point person in a very tumultuous, emotion-laden event was not healthy for me, frankly. I'm not going to start crying because it's not something to cry over, but it's still something that I'm still working on processing and still frustrated by. I'm glad to be done with that portion of my life. It got to be about mid-January, and I was still dealing with the issue surrounding the implosion of the national organization because things had not settled at that point. And I was looking at my goals for getting my writing done, and I just knew I was not going to be able to accomplish them while I was still president of the local chapter. I made the very conscious decision in probably mid-January to not attempt to write until August of this year. And the reason for that was because by that point I had signed up for this conference regarding learning more about my strengths, as well as I wanted to give myself space and time away from being president and just giving myself some breathing time. And my commitment as president ended on June 30th. I had the strengths conference at the end of July, so I figured August 1st. All right, that will be my goal date. Again, that was mid-January. I had a work conference that I went to in the end of February, and a week after that I went up to New York for a trip that I had been planning since the previous September to see 2 Broadway shows. And it was an overnight trip, and that was March 5th through 6th. And it was right around then that New York was first really starting to see the initial wave of coronavirus cases that they dealt with in March and April of 2020. I was okay. I still, as of this taping, which is November 1st, I still have not had coronavirus. But in the week after that trip, I had to go get a dental crown, and then I got notified by a friend of mine who is a musical theater person. She had seen the news that an usher who worked at one of the shows I went to, the usher worked at the show but was not at the performance that I was at, had been diagnosed with coronavirus, and so there was potential exposure there. I had no temperature, I had no signs as of that point. And then on Friday, March 13th, we got word from work, hey, we want you to go home for the next 2 weeks. It has now been 33 weeks since I've been home working. And so with pandemic, I had a lot of friends who were thrown off their writing game. And I kept telling myself, it's like, oh, I'm so glad I had made the decision back in January not to write. And I held that close to me, that I had already made this decision, so I was going to be okay. Got through the next few months of pandemic. My commitment as president ended on June 30th. I went into July. I'm going to enjoy this time. I'm going to have things clear. I will just enjoy not having the mental responsibility of being president of this chapter any longer. I was done. Pandemic was still going on. I made a trip home to Chicago and I flew out there, and I will include a photo of what I looked like on that flight because I was not taking any more chances than I already was by flying. Then I did the Strengths conference at the end of July, and frankly, that conference was mind-blowing in the most positive, generative way. It was so great. And I had so much energy from that conference that I went in August. I'm like, I'm gonna kill this. I'm gonna get back into writing, and this is gonna be so great. And I did start writing at the beginning of August, and it was about 2 weeks in, and I hit a wall with the story. And I was just like, I don't know what happens next. I truly did not know what happened next. Part of the problem of why I stopped writing back in the previous fall is I didn't know what happened next. So I was able to come up with something to get me over that initial hump, but it couldn't last. As I had more coaching sessions with the coaching group that I work with for Strengths, because they're very writer focused, I came to the realization that I probably am still in burnout. The pandemic isn't helping. This just may not be the right time for me to be writing. So I sat with that idea for a bit longer. And in that time, I also launched the YouTube channel and Crafting Ruby Dreams brand, and that's been going well. That has allowed me to still be creative and learn new skills and exercise a lot of the parts of my brain that I turn to writing for in order to exercise. This has been so useful to me that I don't feel even more depressed and burned out and wondering what's wrong for me, because I know nothing's wrong for me. Burnout isn't that you're broken. It is just that you have extended yourself a little too far and it's taking a little while to heal. And that's okay. This is why I talked about goal setting and burnout, and I'll link to that video up above because I think it's so important for you to know that you are not broken, because I frequently have to tell myself that. So I started writing again in August, and I lasted about 2 weeks, and I got probably about 3,000 words written. That's been the extent of my fiction writing for 2020, and that's not going to change for the last 2 months of the year. It's sometimes hard to still think of myself as a fiction writer because I haven't published a book for 2 years now, at least nothing new, because I did re-release last year my Grievances and Glitter book, which I talk about in the Trying New Techniques video, which again I will link to here. It is frustrating. It is something that I am not ready to change because I am still trying to figure out what kind of writer I am, what I want to do with the next stage of my career, where I want to move forward with my craft. I am reading craft books. I am absorbing story by watching movies and TV shows and reading books as I can, because that's been the other downside of burnout for me, is that I have not actually been consuming a lot of story because nothing is appealing to me right now. I have been on a slow downward hill of reading less and less since 2016, and I have been turning mostly to rereading books that I've already read and enjoyed. There have been a few books that I've read that were new to me this year. I had 2 binges, which it had been a while since I've binged any series or author, and those felt so good, but at the same time I haven't moved forward with reading a whole lot of other new to me books, and those 2 binges were reading books by authors that I was already in the process of rereading. So it was just me finally reading their backlist that I hadn't read yet. So still great because those were new to me stories, but it was not me necessarily branching out into other new to me authors and new to me stories. So the total new to me authors / new to me stories that weren't already part of an existing world or authors oeuvre that I was reading, very low for me this year, which is depressing and unfortunate, and something that I would greatly like to move beyond, because I used to be such a huge reader. That was so much a part of my fiction writing life, was just reading all of the other wonderful work that's out there. If you're at a point where you're questioning if you're in burnout, look for the other things that are part of your writing life, like consuming story in other formats or other books. And if you're not doing that either, that might be a sign that you're in burnout. And so I would investigate that a little further and a little more in moving forward. That's where my writing has been in 2020, and I just felt that it was important to let you all know, since, like I said, one of the focuses of Crafting Ruby Dreams is to talk about writing. While I feel like I'm not much of a fiction writer these days because I've written so little fiction, that does not discount my experiences for over 20 years of writing and my experiences of over 10 years in publishing in various markets. I've got a question for you guys with your writing in 2020. How have you done? What have you accomplished in 2020? Whether that is you've gotten a number of books and or stories written, or you have recognized what a block is for you and you have made the conscious decision to hold off on writing while you work through that block. I would love to hear all of your stories and have a discussion as to what 2020 has been like for those who are writers, because I know so many authors who either had to take a step back because they just could not generate story. And I know a lot of authors who have taken refuge in story, and that because it's a world that they can control and it's a world that brings them joy. So that's something else to remember, is if you are feeling so frustrated by the real world around you, maybe see if you can come up with a wholly brand new story and spend some time in there, because it is hopefully something that will bring you joy. When you generate joy, that helps generate more and more joy in other areas of your life. So I hope you will consider doing that too. I'm still working through the burnout, so I'm not attempting to start writing, but if I feel the overwhelming urge before the end of the year, I'm not going to deny it, because I think it's really important to listen to yourself, and if you feel ready to do something, do it. That's where I'm at with my writing in 2020. This video is going up sometime in December, and I just want to let you know that there might be some changes to the schedule of videos for 2021. Right now I'm looking at doing one of the videos of the two that I usually post as a weekly vlog, where I document my goals for the week and how I go about accomplishing them. And the other video will be on a specific topic, such as this one. So if you have any suggestions for future topics that you would love to see me discuss, again, planning, goal setting, writing, publishing, and getting right with my finances are the main topics of this particular channel. Please drop those in the comments. Thank you so much for sharing your time with me today. If you have found anything in this video useful, please hit that like button so that YouTube knows to recommend it to others. If you haven't already, I hope you will consider hitting the subscribe button and the bell to be notified of when future videos are available. May all your dreams be Ruby dreams. Bye-bye.